What is going on, fellow web developers? My name is Tyler Potts, and in today's video we are going to learn about Pinia for Vue.js. Now, Pinia is essentially it's like what Vuex is. It's a state management tool. You use it to manage your state inside of Vue.js. This one has been specifically designed around the composition API style, although I don't believe you need to use the composition API. You can still use this with Vue 2, as it even says down there. But obviously this has been built with the composition API in mind, with Vue 3 in mind, so it's super more intuitive than what Vuex is, in my opinion, and it's probably going to replace Vuex for me inside of my project. So I'm going to be using Pinia instead of Vuex from now on. So yeah, let's go to get started, and I'll just walk you through this little bit, and then we'll actually build an example with Pinia. So Pinia is a store library for Vue.js, perfect. And basically this is the syntax. You can see here you define a store from Pinia. You create an export called use counter store or whatever for a counter example. You define the store, you give it a name, and then you pass in the different things. So inside of Pinia you have state, actions, and getters. You no longer need mutations, because mutations was used for basically dev tools and stuff like that to actually see the changes, whereas now in Pinia it doesn't matter with this. So this works a lot better. You've got state, actions, and getters that work really well. So as you can see, they're creating a state, so you can see it just how you normally would a state, returning some values. For this one has a count which starts at 0. You can then create an action called increment to increment this value. So this.count plus plus. Every time you hit increment, this count will go up by 1. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And that's what you can see there. You can also see how you use it. So inside of your Vue application, you would import use counter store. In your setup method, you would then just call you would create the counter and say use counter store. So now you've got a counter.count plus plus. You can actually modify the state directly from inside of your actual component here, rather than doing it via something like an action or a mutation. Or you can call this patch, which allows you to update your state. And finally, you can call your actions here as well. So you can see counter.increment, and you can keep calling that. Now, personally, I prefer using this, the action. It's cleaner for me, and it just works. And as you can see here, you can also create a store. So when you define your store like this up here, you can actually use the similar syntax how the setup syntax works in Vue 3 composition API. And you can actually just do an arrow function. Instead of just passing through an object, you'd pass through an arrow function, and then you can do count ref 0, increment plus plus, and it's the same thing as you would in a setup value there. So that's basically what this is here, and we're going to create an actual example. So we're going to create a user management tool, some sort of team management tool here, to basically use it. So let's head over to our empty folder here. There's an empty VS Code folder, and we're just going to start by creating a default. We're going to create a feat at latest. We're going to create in the current folder, and then we're going to use a template of Vue.js. Is that all going to ask us what the package name is? And we're just going to say team manager. And there you go. I'm going to install two things. I'm going to install Pinia, and I'm also going to install UUID, just so we can generate random IDs. You don't have to use UIUID. You could just use the index or whatnot. I just want to show the UUID. I think it looks cool. So let's hit install, and that's going to, not only is that going to install our node modules on the left here, it's also going to install the two files we've just asked for. So there you go, we've got our node modules and everything else. So let's just clear this, and look, if I run npm I just to prove it, there you go, you can see it's instantly done. So let's just say npm run def just to get this up and running. We can open this, and I'm going to break this out, slap it to the side, select the code, and we're just going to put these side by side, just like that. Close that, we don't need that anymore. We don't really need this side panel. We're going to delete, so you can see here, this is just a default Vue.js thing. So we're going to delete the components. I'm going to delete the assets. I'm going to app.main, remove everything inside of this, everything in here, and we're just going to put hello world, and we're just going to delete everything inside styles for now. There you go, you can see that's just there. So now I'm going to show you how you actually get started with Vue. So to actually add it to your Vue application, what you want to do is go import, and you're going to say create Pinia from Pinia. And then you can actually just do this. I'm going to break this down. So you can see here, I can say .use, just like you would with, let's say, Vue router. If you're doing Vue router, you would pass in the router. Here, we're going to create a Pinia, just like that. It creates a Pinia instance to be used by the application. There you go. So if we hit save, Pinia is now ready to go. That's all you need to do to get it started. Now we need to create our stores. So what we do, inside the source, we're going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this stores. We're then going to say, we're going to give it a name. So I'm going to call this users.js. Now this is basically just going to be the user store. You can create as many stores as you want. So one thing what's good about Pinia is you're not restricted to one sort of set of stores. So you don't just have the default index store. You could have multiple stores. So you don't have to just have you know, in Vuex you have a store which has a state and you have to put everything in there. This way you can split it out and only import it when you need it. And, you know, I'll show you this in a second. So what we're going to do is we're going to import define store from Pinia. We're also just for the... Oh, please stop deleting it. We're also going to import v4 from, or as UUID from UUID. So we're just gonna, just so we can use that. Again, you don't need to use this, you can do whatever you want with this. This is just for my thing. So we're gonna export a constant. You can actually export default here as well if you want to. I'm just gonna export a const called use user store, so that equal to define a store. And basically in here we're gonna give it a name. I missed a name, and this is just gonna be called users. And this is going to be our user store. So we're going to have a state in here. Now the state is going to be an arrow function, and it's going to return something. So inside of here we could say return, and we're going to just return an empty array of users. So this is what our state is. That's all we need for this state. You could add more in here. You could have like current user and stuff like that in here, but we're just going to have users. We're then going to go underneath the state, and we're going to create, so you can see here my autofill's trying to say mutations, but that's not possible inside of Pinia because we use actions only. So we'll create some actions. So let's just say actions here, and this would be, let's say, create. Then we could pass through stuff, so let's say the user, and now this is how we're going to create a new user. So you can see we've got users here. So I'm going to say this .users, that's all you need to do to call users. You don't need to say this.state, you don't need to pass anything through this function. You just say this.users. We're then going to set that equal to, or sorry, we're going to say .push to add a new user, and we're going to pass through this. We're then going to say .user to get all the information from the user here. And, you know, I'm also going to put this in front. We're going to say UID is equal to UUID, comma, pass the rest of the user data. So all we're doing here is we're creating a new user by pushing a new object, which we're going to create an ID and pass through the user from our component. So we're going to pass through another object. So this user in here would be, let's say, name Bob, and then email bob@bob.com. Com, yeah, don't worry, you get what I'm trying to say here. And basically, that will do here is it will say, okay, so this is now going to be user. So we're just going to break this down. So this would turn into name and email here as well, just like that. Just how that is there. So basically, it just injects this inside of this. That I just wanted to explain that in case anyone got lost. I apologize if I over-explained it as well. So we're also going to then have to delete a user. So let's just say an ID in here. And then we can say this.user is equal to users, filter out the one with the ID. And there you go. So that's as simple as that. Now we're going to have a getters, and getters obviously allow you to get users and return them in a different way. So we're going to say users by name. So we're going to sort them by their name. So we're going to get the state in this one. You have to pass through the state. And we're going to say const sortable, which is going to be our sortable array. We're going to say state.users. We're then going to say return sortable.sort, and we're going to say A, B, and then we're going to use this a.name.local compare b.name. So what this local compare does is it basically checks your name, it converts it into a number, and then it will confirm it with whatever you pass through. So compare it, sorry, not confirm. Compare it with B's name, and it will convert that to a number, a numerical value basically, and they will be able to determine which one comes first. So by alphabetical order. So if this is ABC and this is CBA, name A will come before B. So that's, I thought I'd explain that too. There you go. So that's a getter. So we've got our getters, a delete method, a create method, and our actual state here. So that's all we need to do for this user's state here. But if we want to create another one, we could create another one. We could do the exact same thing, and instead of users, we could have like admins, and we could have an array of just admins and do the same similar thing we wanted to. So let's go to our app here and let's start using this store. So how we use it is we say import, and then we can say use user store from, and then we just get the folder. So we'll go stores/users. We can then create the user store. So we say const user store is equal to use user store. And that's just going to get the instance of our user store, which is currently being used. We're going to need some input fields. So we're going to say user input, and it's going to be equal to a ref. We need to import ref. So we're going to say import ref from few, just like that. And here you go. So now we're going to have a name, which is going to be our user's name, and an email address, which could be our user's email. We'll then create a constant called sort, and we'll set it to a false, because we'll check this and uncheck this depending if we want to sort it or not sort it. So let's create a user. So we're going to say create user, and we're going to set this. Let me zoom in one here for you as well. So apologies, should have done that before. So this is just going to be an arrow function, and what we want to do is say if, we're going to break this down, not user input.value.name or not user input.value.email. So if they're not, we're just going to return, and we'll alert, please enter both name and email. There you go. Now, once we've got that, what we want to do is we want to say, we literally want to do this, user store.create user input.value, and that's going to pass through our input fields we've filled out. We then want to reset the input field, so we're going to say user input.value is equal to name and email. There you go. And that will reset the actual form for us as well. So it'll reset this here. So let's actually do the markup for this now. So let's just break this down. Let's just say main. And inside of here, we're going to have a H1. We're just going to call this team manager. We're then going to say form, and we'll just do a @submit here.prevent. The prevent stops it from actually reloading the page. And we're going to pass through create user in here. Oh, not user, create user. We'll then have a few inputs. So we're going to have a text input, which is going to be our name. So let's just break this down. So we've got text. We're then going to have a placeholder. This is just going to say e.g. And you guys know me, I love my anime. So we're going to say Naruto Uzumaki in here, just as the example. We then want to fee model it. So we're going to bind it to the value it needs. So we're going to say fee model, and we're going to say user input.name. So this will be our name input. We can then copy this underneath, add in two more, and this will be our email, and we could say here hokage@ninja.com. Just an example there you go. And we'll change this to be an email field to make sure it's validated. Finally, we'll just have one more input, which is actually going to be a type of submit, and this is just going to say create user. So let's break that down, and there you go. My page seems to have died here. Where's an error somewhere? Resort is my... Huh. It looks like it's doing something weird. Let's just refresh and rerun. There you go. There you go. So that's now working. So you can see we've got our fields here. We'll now need to actually list out our users. So this is where we're going to start using stuff. So let's create we'll do the label in a second actually. We'll create the sort function in a minute. Let's just create a diff called users. Inside of there, we're going to have another diff which is going to have a v4 on it. And this is just going to be user in user store.users. So this is how we get. So now when we want to get our users from our store, we just call it as simple as that. So what it's called inside of its state, we just call users. We can then say class of user here. And then in here, we're just going to, for now, let's just quickly say user. So let's see if this works. So let's just say Tyler at t@test.com. Enter, and we have an error. Create user is not a function in our store. That's because we didn't call it create user, it's just create. We have named it inside of our store, and here you can see it's just called create. So let's refresh this and let's try that again. Let's just do Naruto here. Naruto Hokage at test.com. And let's just hit create user, and there you go. You can see we've got a generated ID, his name, and his email address all appearing here. We could have Sasuke, and we could say Uchiha at forlast.com because he's the last Uchiha. There you go. And there you go. That's all in there. Now we can actually sort this as well. So now what we want to do is we want to create a label. We're just going to remove that, and in our label we'll have a span called sort, and then we'll have an input of type check box, and we're just going to feed model this, feed model to our sort method there. There you go. And then when we hit sort, what we want to do is we want to go here. We're going to set a feed if. Now this is quite a crude way of doing it, but it's the only way I can think of doing it around. So we're going to say if it's not sorted, we're going to show it like this. We're then going to copy this, paste it in, and we're going to say if it, or feed else. So if it is sorted, we're going to show the users by name. So to get the getters, which we created, the users by name, all we have to do is actually just do dot users by name. Hit save, and now if we check this, local compare is not a function. That's because we've actually done something wrong here. So here it says a dot name sortable a dot name dot local compare a dot name. Okay guys, I have fixed it by basically changing this from being a one line into a multi-line thing here. I don't know why it didn't work. It worked when I did it before, it didn't work now. So there you go, just basically change this to look like this, and then we can continue on. So back in here, we obviously create users by name, and that's how we get a getter. And here you can see if I sort this, oh sorry, I didn't name, let's just do dot name here as well. So you can see we have test Naruto ABC, and if we actually tick it, you can see it actually goes in alphabetical order of ABC Naruto test. So let's actually create this section here. So let's just call this a diff. We're going to say ID, and then we're going to say, we're just going to pass through basically the user.id. If I could type. We're going to say h3, and this will just be the user.name. And we'll just have a paragraph underneath that has the user.email in it. There you go. So that's what it's looking like so far. We basically just want to copy the innards of this and paste it here. And there you go. You can sort it and change it round now, and that works. So yeah, let's try this again. So let's say Naruto Uzumaki, and we'll just say Naruto at team7.com. We'll have Sasuke Uchiha at Sasuke at team7.com. We'll have Sakura Haruno at useless at team7.com. And then we'll have Kakashi Hatake at copy at cat.com. And there you go. So there we go. If we sort this, you can see that sorts into the correct order. And there. So that is all good. You can see that's all working here. So the sort function works. But now let's say we want to actually delete one. Let's just add a button underneath this and call delete. We'll then create an @click event. That's just going to say, we'll just call it delete user. And then we're going to pass through the user.id. And we're going to obviously copy this button into our sorted function down here. And then let's actually create the delete user. So we'll say const delete user is equal to id arrow function, where we'll say user store dot delete. And then we could just alert user deleted with id. And there you go. Let's now just go back to our user and check. So it's called delete, and we say here user store delete ID, and that's exactly what we do. So now in here, let's just say we want to delete the useless one. User deleted with ID, and there you go. She's now gone, and you can actually sort this still. Everything still works, and you can delete it. So let's say we delete Kakashi, and there you go. We now are just left with the two goats of the series, the TV show, the anime, and that is it. So that's how you use Pinia on a basic level. You create a store, you create a state, you can create actions and getters, and do, obviously you can create multiple stores. So you could add in more stores here. You could have a use store, an admin store. You could have like a setting store if you have like a page settings or something on there, and a bunch of different stores to actually use to manipulate and make your state management a lot easier to handle. So guys, that's going to be it for this tutorial. I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope you learned how you use Pinia and how you can get started using Pinia. And if you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. Smash that subscribe button if you're new around here. And if you have any questions or queries, drop them down below in the comment section. If you get stuck or you have any issues and you need to share some code, feel free to jump in the Discord server. The link is down below. Hop in the help channels and say, hey, I need help, someone please help me, and someone should be able to help you out if you get stuck. If I'm around, I'll try and help you out myself. Finally guys, if you are enjoying my channel, you've been around it for a while, and you want some extra benefits when we stream, when you're in the Discord server, when you're chilling around, then consider becoming a member of the channel. Not only does it support me and my channel for me to keep creating more videos, but it allows me to actually see you guys. I'll be able to interact directly with you in the Discord server because we have our own chat for the team, for the members. And yeah, so thank you guys, and for now I will see you in the next video. Peace out.